Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to look at EC2 and key pairs. So we're going to do a few exercises. We're going to provision an EC2 instance. We're then going to log into it and pull the public key from the instance metadata, see how we can do that. We're then going to see what happens when we delete the key pair in the console. Will we still be able to access that EC2 instance? We'll then have a look at how we can add additional public keys and private keys to our existing EC2 instances. And then finally, we'll look at the ways to connect to an EC2 instance if we lose our private key. So it's very hands-on. This is a lab and you will need to log into the AWS console. Okay, so I'm logged into the AWS console. I've gone over to EC2. I'm going to go ahead and launch an instance. I'm going to do an Amazon Linux AMI. I'm basically going to keep everything as default. So next. I'm going to go add my tags. I'm going to call this my EC2 key pair test server, something like that. So this is what I'm going to be using. And sorry, that should be the name. So I'll just name and then in here, paste that in there, and then we'll go across and just add it to whatever security group that you usually use. So my web DMZ, make sure port 22 is open to either your IP address or to the world. Go ahead and hit review and launch, and it's going to give me that security error saying it's open to the world. And now what I'm going to do is I've got an existing key pair that I'm going to use. It's entirely up to you. You could create a new key pair for this lab. Do whatever you think is best, but make sure you have access to the private key. So that is now launching. I'm going to go in and view my instance, and I'm just going to wait for this instance to come online, and then I'm going to SSH into it. Okay, so my EC2 instance is now provisioned. I'm going to copy and paste the public IP address into my clipboard. Okay, so I'm going to SSH. Okay, so I'm going to SSH into it. So SSH EC2-user and then @ and then the public IP address, and then using the key my EC2 key pair.pem, and I'm going to hit yes. That's added. I'm going to elevate my privileges up to root, so sudo su. And now you can see I'm in the EC2 user directory. If I just clear my screen. Okay, so I'm in the EC2 user directory. In here, I'll be able to go to a hidden directory called SSH. And if I type ls, you'll be able to see authorized keys. Now, the cat command basically will open a file and show me what's in it. So I'm going to use cat. And in here, we can see what appears to be my public key. So it's a SSH RSA. Here's the actual start of the public key. It goes all the way down, and then there's the name of it. It's my EC2 key pair. So this is our public key. So it's stored in the EC2 user directory in a hidden folder called .ssh, and then the file is called authorized keys. We can also get the authorized keys using the instance metadata using the curl command. So let's go ahead and clear the screen. So to do this, we type in curl and then HTTP, and then it's always the same IP address. So 169.254.169.254.254. And then we always do latest, and that's always meta -data, and then hyphen. And that will tell you a whole bunch of different things that you can run the curl command against. So essentially what we want to do is go into our public keys. So go up, so click on up, and then I want to do my public and then -keys, and then hit enter. And then you can see that it's just the available directory is 0. So you can hit 0 and with a /, and then it's open SSH-key. So I'm just showing you how this works, how you can discover, the different services within the metadata. So open SSH, then open SSH, then -key, then / again. And then here we can see our public key. So SSH RSA, so it's an RSA key. Here's the start of the public key, here's where it ends, and then space, and then my EC2 key pair. So let's do a couple of things. The very first thing I want to do is I want to go in and add a new public key to this EC2 instance. And what we're going to do then is we're going to connect to it using our new public key, private key. and then we'll go ahead and delete the public key in the console, and we'll see how that affects the EC2 instance. So I'm going to clear the screen. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of fun now. So what we want to do is give ourselves access to this EC2 instance. We want to give it access to S3 because we want to move files from EC2 to S3. So let's go over to the AWS console. Okay, so I'm in the AWS console. I'm going to go down to Identity Access Management. And what I want to do is just go down here and create a new role. Ignore this. This is just a little error I'm having. And then what we want is it's an EC2 role. Note the UI has changed probably since you've last used it. It's quite a new UI. So we want an EC2 role, and we want to allow EC2 instances to call AWS services on our behalf. So what AWS services do we want? Well, we want S3 administrator access, so S3 full access. Go ahead and hit next, and we'll call this S3 admin and then access. And I'll just do the same for the description. We all know what it is. Go ahead and create the role. So that has now created the role. It used to be with roles, and you can see the role in here. It used to be with roles that you had to, you could only attach them to EC2 instances when they were first provisioned. That's no longer the case. You can just go in here and go actions and then instance settings, and then go to attach and replace IAM role. And we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to use the S3 admin access that we just created. Go ahead and hit apply, and that role operation has now succeeded. So if I go back over to my terminal window, I should just be able to type in here AWS S3 LS, and that will show me all my buckets, which you can see in here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a bucket using the command line. So AWS S3 MB, and then it's going to be S3, and then I'm just going to call it A Cloud Guru My EC2 key pairs, something like that. And so that will hopefully generate the bucket, which it has done. So the next thing I want to do is I want to clear the screen. So I'm in my EC2 user directory. If I type in ls, I can see that there's nothing there. So what I'm going to do is type SSH keygen, and then the -t for type, and we're going to generate an RSA private and public key. So what do we want it to be called? We'll call it my new key pair. Just keep it simple. And we can enter a passphrase. I'm not going to enter a passphrase for this. I'm just going to hit enter twice. And now if we type in ls, we can see the new key pair. So we've got my new key pair and then my new key pair.pub. If we output my new key pair.pub, which is our public key, we'll be able to see it in there. So there it is there. Now what we want to do is we want to add this to our authorized keys list. As you can remember, if we go to our cd.ssh directory and type in ls, we've got authorized, and it's an underscore key, not a hyphen key. Do remember that. So we can go in and cat it again and see what's already in there. Let's go back a directory, and what we're going to do is we're going to pipe the data in our public key, so my new key pair. So we'll type in cat my new key pair.pub, and then we're going to pipe that along to .ssh and then / and then it's authorized keys, and it's underscore keys. Don't do a hyphen keys because that will create a new file. So go ahead and hit enter. If we go back to our SSH directory, now that we, if we cat out the new one, so authorized keys, we should see twice as many keys. So here we go. We've got our SSH RSA, and it's my EC2 key pair there. And then here is it's being done by the root account at this private IP address. So we've got added our new public key in there. So now that we've done that, let's go cd ... and clear the screen. And if we just have a look at our new key pair, our private key is called my new KP. Let's chmod that and change the permissions so we can use it. So we'll call it chmod 400 my new key pair. So we're reducing the amount of permissions. Now what we want to do is we want to copy that over to our S3 bucket so that we can download it into our downloads directory. So to do that, I'm just going to remember what I called my S3 bucket. So S3 LS, and it was called A Cloud Guru My EC2 key pair. So to copy it, all I need to do is type AWS S3 and then copy, and then the address, the file name that I want to copy is my new key pair, and I want to copy that to S3, and then it's going to go to over to A Cloud Guru My EC2 key pair, and that's it. Hit enter. And there we go, it's uploaded it to my EC2, to my S3 bucket. So let's go over to S3. Okay, so I'm in the AWS console, I'm just navigating over to S3, and I'm going to go in and grab my bucket. So it's A Cloud Guru, my EC2 key pair. I can see it in here, and I'm going to go in and download it. So now I've got my private key downloaded to my downloads directory. Now the big test is can I connect in to my EC2 instance using my private key? Let's go find out. Okay, so here I am in where I've downloaded the file. So I've just typed in ssh-user at, and then the public IP address, and then the identity, and then the name of my key, which was just my new key KP. I didn't have a .pem on the end. Going to go ahead and hit enter. Here it's giving me a warning about my permissions being too open. So let's just go ahead and chmod this. I thought I would be able to get the same permissions, but probably not. So chmod for 400 my new KP, and that will then open it back up. And then hopefully if I hit enter, let's have a look at what happens. So there we go. We are able to log into our EC2 instance using a new key pair that we've generated. We can now go and elevate our privileges into root. So sudo su. And we can go ahead and create more and more key pairs, public and private keys, and keep adding them, like I said, to the authorized keys in that SSH directory. So you can have multiple public keys inside EC2. You can generate them yourself, load them up into EC2, etc. So this has been a bit of a long tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and have a break, and then in the next lecture, what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at what happens when we delete our key pair from Amazon, what happens to our EC2 instance. So if you've got the time, join me in part 2.